Hello and welcome. My name is Patrick Dailey, and this is the 4th episode of Daily Life. Well, what's up everyone? It's great to be here today. No matter who you are, where you are at, or when you are listening to this podcast, or even watching the YouTube channel, I would like to welcome you to this podcast, to this channel, and to this place. You are welcome. No matter where you're at in life, you're welcomed here. The mission and the vision of Daily Life is to empower people to be the very best that they can be. This is the main goal. It is the main objective of this podcast and of this YouTube channel. In time, I hope and I pray that this channel and this podcast will grow into something great to help other people reach their potential. For every single day, every moment that we are here on the earth, we are learning, we are growing, and we are encouraged to do that. And as we learn and as we grow, we are encouraged to share that knowledge, that wisdom and experience with others. It is like this continual transformation, this continual evolution, this metamorphosis that happens in our lives. For when we learn, we grow, and we must be adaptable to good, positive changes. I believe that life is short and it should be well lived. It should be well spent. It has been said that the average life expectancy is somewhere between 77 years to 80 years old. And when you think about that, it is not that long in the grand scheme of time. You know, when you think about how long ago the dinosaurs were, or the age of the universe, or the age of the earth, or how, the Roman Empire even, that is a long time ago. And our life expectancy being, let's say, 80 years, that's not that long. And I'm not saying that to discourage you. I'm just saying that it goes to show you how precious our life really is. From being born to being a child to being a teenager, going into adulthood and even to old age, there is a season, every season in life. It is under the sun. Our life is precious. So you have to ask yourself this question. Do you value how precious your life is as well as the life of others, the nature that you see, the trees, the birds, the sea life, right? The land animals and other people? Do you value life? That is a very deep question that you have to ask yourself. And I'm asking these questions not to scare you because, like I was saying, the fact that the average human being lives for this long, I want to encourage you in this podcast and in this video to live the best life that you can here on this earth. Do not just throw your life away or waste it away. Now, when I say these things, I'm not saying that you should never rest or recover. What I am saying is that we should be mindful of our lives and the time that we have been given here on the earth. We are to experience life. We are to live life. The experience that we have here on the earth is uniquely our own, and we should become more aware of our life, our very existence, and through that, we should become more empowered. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, empowerment. We should enjoy this life and not just waste it all away. For when you are wasteful, oftentimes we do not realize what we are doing with our lives, the fact that we're wasting it away until it is too late. Never let this be you. This should not be you. Instead, you should be mindful and aware of your time here on the earth and the life that you have been given. I cannot even imagine what the effect of this life wastefulness can do to any person, just to a person, someone you may know, or even to yourself. And since I'm on this topic of not wasting your time, I have a quote that I want to share with you. This is actually from William Shakespeare. It says, I wasted time, and now doth time waste me. Now that's a quote written by William Shakespeare, and I know that's a really old quote, but we have to remember that when we study history, when we look at old books or we look at old plays and poetry and all sorts of things throughout the centuries, there's a lot of wisdom, there's a lot of insight, there's a lot of knowledge that we can use, that we can extract and apply to not only our lives, but the lives of others. So this specific quote, it's an echo of the law of sowing and reaping. If this quote were to be updated, it would just simply say that because I've wasted time, now time is wasting me. This quote from Shakespeare is just another one of those quotes, you guys. Like I said, it echoes the idea, the concept, the law of sowing and reaping. It is a metaphysical truth. If we can only but learn the basic truth of sowing and reaping, just that little piece of wisdom, we will have in our arsenal, right? In our toolbox, our resources, one of the greatest truths that has been given to us by God, the divine source. So with all of that, I encourage you, do not squander what you have been given. Use it or lose it. I have this belief of mine that we as human beings were placed here on this earth to live life and to experience it, not only for the good, but also for the bad. We are made to live this life. Like I'm saying, you guys, life is meant to be enjoyed, it is meant to be experienced, but we are to experience all of the good things that happen in this life and also the bad things. It's like these lessons that we're meant to learn in this life, in this existence living here on the earth. Life is not meant to be wasted away. As we live in the present moment, as we live in the here and the now, we look towards the future, right? We make plans and we dream towards the future, but we live in the present moment. And further, we learn lessons from the past. We look towards heaven, or many people look towards heaven. We look towards the afterlife, or something outside of being here. Since we all have been given potential that exists inside of us, it is up to us, it is up to every single one of us to see what we can do with all that we have been given. So if you are not living your life, if you have not sought excellence, you can start anytime, any day, any moment. But certainly, begin as soon as you can to live your very life. It is worth it to live your life and to give it your all, because we have been given all. We have been given this beautiful, this wonderful life. To live a life of excellence, giving life all that you have, giving it all you got, is to live. It's to live life instead of just throwing it away. Just think of all of these people. Just think of the massive amounts. I have no idea how many people are doing this, but there are a lot of people who waste their mind. They waste their body, right? They waste their life away, and they don't even think for a moment that they can live their life differently. And I sure hope that that is not you. That you don't throw your life away, but rather you live your life with intention. You live your life with purpose, with love, with understanding, and experience this beautiful life. Now, as a Christian, I believe that there is life after death, and I do believe that the life after this will be better than this one. There'll be an existence beyond this, something that is much better than here on the earth. I believe that human beings, as a Christian, like I'm saying, that human beings, we find salvation through Christ by deciding to have Christ at the center of our lives. And you know, you guys, this is my own conviction. This is my belief. This is where I am at. But even if you do not believe in heaven or the afterlife, I still encourage you to live your life to the best of your ability in the present moment, in the here and the now, today, starting now. You have all of your life to live to and to enjoy, so experience it. Observe, live your life, go out and do. There's so much that we can enjoy here on earth. When I talk about the mission of this podcast to empower people, they're two simple words that have such a profound meaning and application to life. To be empowered. When I speak these words, I encourage you to just think, to consider, to take some time, some moments, some energy to think of your life. Think of who you are, where you are at in your life, and where you want to go. There's so many people who don't do that, and I really hope that you do take the time to think of it. So I want you guys to consider some of these questions that I have for you. Are you on the life path that you want to be? Are you going in a direction of the life that you want to live? Or are you going in a direction that has been set for you, that you've been placed on by another person? There's a lot of people who live that way. There's a lot of people who their entire life, their job, their career, who they married or whatever it is, has been set by someone else. And that's something that's really sad when you really think about it, because we should make that decision, not someone else. We have our own life to live. We shouldn't let someone else make those decisions for us. But if you do make the conscious decision, at least be aware that you're giving that power to someone else. So it is good to ask yourself questions, even ones that are basic or are just simple. It may seem pointless, it may even seem stupid to ask questions to yourself, but often it is in the simple questions that have the greatest influence on our lives. It's those little things, right? It is in the little things that we can discover for ourselves and for others big answers and big revelations. This is no different than how little things can have a big impact upon your life. Simple questions, you have to ask yourself those questions. It can have a huge impact when you really take the time, if you ask yourself it, if you consider it, you ponder it, and find the answers. You would be amazed by the answers that you can find. In terms of being empowered, there is power in taking control of your own life. There is power that comes to anyone who takes the necessary steps to make decisions for themselves, to think for themselves, and to live life by their own free will and choice. Now, I mentioned in past episodes that we should take ownership and responsibility for our own lives. Our lives are like a ship, right? I love thinking about this. It's like a ship. We are the captain of our ship, but we can choose to be the captain or to not be the captain. We can give that control, right? Our captain status to someone else and let them determine it, or we can become the captain, be the captain, step up to the plate. We can steer our very own life ship in the waters of time. When we stay on the course of our goals, our ambitions, our dreams, it is so worth it. If we get off course or we get knocked down, we can course correct. We can go in the right trajectory, in the right direction that we want to go. And as we go through the waters of life, look, there's going to be storms in life. There's going to be times where, a big wave will come and just knock you down, or you next thing you know, you're not going in the right direction that you want to go. You can change that course. You can change the trajectory of your life and go on the course that you want. That's the beautiful thing about being the captain of your own ship. We can also, and here's another good thing that we can think about, is that we can have people on our own ship who will help guide us through the waters of life, help us along the way. This can be a physical person, this can be spiritual guidance, right? Whether that's God or humans, we can have help. So ask yourself this question: who is steering your ship? I certainly hope that it is you. Rise up and be the one who sets sail and embarks on such a journey through the waters of life. In the last episode, I mentioned how we should not place our life on autopilot. And in the same way that I am saying that you are the captain of your own destiny, you are your own pilot. These, I'm giving a bunch of examples, right? A captain of a ship and a pilot of your own plane, right? I'm saying that you are in control of your own destiny. You have been given this life, and part of being empowered is taking that ownership and responsibility over your life and taking control of your life and not letting anybody else boss you around, letting you decide what is best for you in the trajectory that you want to go. You get to control what is on the inside, right? That is me, right? I get to control myself, what's on the inside. Then there's things that's outside of me. There are things that are outside us, and those things are outside of our control, and that is okay, because all that matters is that I have control of my own life. It doesn't matter what happens outside of me. What matters is the response to what life will throw at me. You are the pilot. You are in control. Don't let someone pilot your life. This is what I mean when I say that we should not live our lives on autopilot, right? Because it's so easy. It's so convenient at times to let someone else make decisions for us, isn't it? It's so easy for us to not take time to think and consider our lives. It's so easy for us to just let things just slide by without a care in the world. But I encourage you, it's so worth it to be able to take the time, the effort, the energy, to take control, to take inventory of your life. It is so worth it. Certainly, there are some great things that we can streamline, right? There's so many great things that we can place on autopilot. There are many things we can automate. I mean, if you look at all the technology that's out there, there's so much that we can do that is a convenience to us, but not the very core and control of who we are. That choice is up to you. The most powerful and beautiful truth is the truth that we are able to control our lives and make decisions and make choices for how we are going to live. It starts with you. And so we can make life better or worse. We can literally make heaven or hell on earth by our own thought process and by our own actions. We can make decisions internally in how we respond to external things. The internal, right, like I was mentioning earlier, that is what is inside of us. That is what is in our own domain, under our control. And when those storms come in, right, when like I'm mentioning the boat on the ship, right, the ship that's going through the waters, there's going to be stormy waters, right? Or if you're flying a plane and you're going through a storm there, I mean, there's storms in life. And that's just the reality of it. When you're going through storms in life, these are external. They are outside of you. And no storm can push you down more than you have control over yourself. So what I mean is this. When storms come our way, those external storms cannot move the internal state of mind. Now, as a Christian, I believe that Spirit, the Holy Spirit, is within me. The Spirit indwells in me, and through this force comes power. It, like so many other things, is a gift from above. There is scripture that says that every good gift comes from above, and that's a very powerful Bible verse. And if you are a Christian, look that verse up. It's a very encouraging one, that every good gift comes from God. It comes from heaven. That's a very powerful verse. So there's a quote that speaks to this topic right now. It is from Seneca. It is a 1st century Roman philosopher. He is known as Seneca the Younger. And his quote says this, that God has his dwelling within every good man. I want to read that one more time. God has his dwelling within every good man. You know, I believe that all people were born with a purpose. We were all born with purpose, potential, and free will. All of these things are gifts that we have the ability and the opportunity to use. It is through the exercise, right? It is through the application, the use of free will, that we can live, that we can act, that we can do life how we choose to live it. So I encourage you, make that decision to choose what you are going to do with your life and how you are going to live, right? How you're going to conduct yourself in everyday living. It's a really wonderful encouragement. So often, there are so many people who think that they have power over you, right? There's so many people who will stop at nothing to try to control your very life and the decisions that you have the ability to make. In other words, there's a lot of people out there who will try to control you, they'll try to control your mind, they'll try to control your life. This is a battle over the very essence of you. It's a battle over the mind, right? It's a battle over will. It's a battle over power over you. It is the battle of your free mind, and you get to decide how you respond to somebody like that. And it's always sad. It's very sad when you see people who seek to control another person. This can be in business relationships, right? Where you have a boss who's trying to say, if you don't do this, and they're being very controlling, right? The classic case of the micromanager. That's a classic example. Or think of the narcissistic boyfriend or narcissistic girlfriend or spouse or whatever. Those are classic examples of people who are trying to control every movement, the things that you say, the things that you do, your very beliefs, until the point where you're no longer who you are. And that's a really sad thing, right? That can happen in school, that can happen at work, that can happen in relationships, marriages, that can happen in families, it can happen in friendships, it can happen in churches, it can happen. It's a very common thing that there's people who seek to control you. And you have to be very mindful of that. It's just really sad. It's disencouraging. It's disheartening that there are people who are like that. And it certainly is a battle, and you have to be very careful about that. So I encourage you to defend yourself, your free will, your ability to think, your free mind. Be free to think, be free to live, and be free to be who you are. It saddens me to know that there are people who will try to control you, right? That's one of the really unfortunate things in this life. But there are also people who will seek to hurt you and disempower you. There's a famous saying, and I don't know who said this, but I'm sure many of you have heard of it before. It is this saying that hurt people hurt people. That's right. 4 words here. Hurt people, right? This saying is a phenomenon. You would think that if you've been hurt before, you wouldn't want to hurt other people, right? Like, think about it. Okay, I've been hurt by in an abusive relationship or whatever. And I don't want to be like that because I've been hurt. You would think that would be the logical thing, but that's not the case. More often than not, you actually find people who've been hurt, and because they've been hurt, they're going to hurt other people, or at least they're going to try to, or they're going to make every effort to do so. And that's very disempowering. That's discouraging to know that there are people who are like that. To go on your own, and to believe in yourself, to think for yourself, to act, to go out and do. Sadly, there are going to be people who will try to stop you. There's going to be people who will try to resist you and to change your mind from any goal or any ambition or any dream that you have for yourself, that you're wanting to go out on your own. You're wanting to do what you want for your life. There's going to be people who try to stop you. And that's probably because they are hurt, or they gave up, or they failed, they tried, they failed, and they just didn't want to do it anymore. And it's very unfortunate that just because they have failed and they're not trying again, that they want you to be miserable in the process. And I think of, there's so many examples that we can go over. I have a story that I wrote in my first book, Living Out Your God-Given Potential, of a coworker that I once worked with, who basically told me that she gave up every single one of her dreams. That's really sad. Just hearing that, can you imagine? And I'm sure you may know somebody like that who never dreams. There are people who gave up on all of their dreams. Are they really good people to be around? I'm not saying they're bad people, but are they fun to be around? Are they, encouraging or whatnot? Well, in my experience, usually the answer is no, right? And so with that, there's people who'll just try to stop you. It's very unfortunate. It's very sad. Don't let those people stop you. You push on. You keep pushing forward. You keep moving towards the goal no matter what kind of resistance you get. I mean, as long as what you're doing is good, right? As long as it's finding your identity, finding out who you are, or you have a dream of doing a certain kind of job, or you have a dream that, you want to live in a certain area, those things are fine. Those things are good. And that's what I'm talking about in the context of this, is that whatever it is you're doing, I certainly hope that it's good and not bad, not evil, not something that's ethically wrong or something that is wrong that will hurt other people. I certainly would not want to encourage them. So go out and do. It doesn't matter what people say or what kind of negative energy people have, the negative vibes, right? Or these words that they spew at you. No matter how hard they try, go out and do, regardless of the resistance of others. Be who you are meant to be. These words are meant for you to be empowered, to set sail on the sea of life, and to stay the course of where you want to go in this beautiful, awesome, and precious life. So there's a famous German proverb that I found when I was researching doing this episode, and it's a hard one, and you may not agree with it. I just know it's a difficult one, whether it's true or not, but I want to share this one with you. It says, "To hurt is easy, to heal is hard." And that's a hard one because I'm thinking about it. Well, being hurt is easy, right? But healing, the process of healing and recovering, I think that second part is the part that really sticks out to me, is that healing process when you have been hurt is hard. To hurt someone is easy. To be hurt, that also can be easy. But to fully recover and to fully heal, now that's something that's more difficult. To be on a path of healing, it's not easy. And to resist those who seek to hurt you, that takes practice. Keep in mind that words spoken to us, it's outside of us. They don't affect the internal peace that is within us. It doesn't affect the mindset that we have within us, but we have to have practice with that. We make the conscious decision whether to allow the words that are spoken into our mind and affect us or not. And I know that's a hard one. That's a hard one even for me. I don't like having people yell at me. I don't like people sending negative energy and saying negative things to me or about me. I don't like that. And it's certainly hard to resist that, but certainly they are words that are spoken that are meant to try to hurt you. And I'm not going to let those bad words hurt me. And certainly, like doing a podcast like this or releasing any sort of video, there's going to be negative feedback. There's going to be people who will not agree with anything that I say. There's going to be people who are going to say, I don't like you. I don't like your podcast. I don't like any of that. That's just the reality. But if this is what I really want to do, I'm not going to care what you're going to say. I'm not going to care what you think. I'm going to keep moving forward and I'm going to keep growing. I'm going to keep learning, and I'm just going to keep moving forward. That's really what matters, not what you say. And unfortunately, on platforms like YouTube, on social media especially, there's so much negative energy that's out there. There's so many negative people who are saying, oh, well, you suck, or you're stupid, or whatever that is. Don't let that affect you. Those are just words that are outside of you. Don't let it get in you. Don't let it affect who you are and your internal goal, whatever that goal is. Don't let it stop you. You keep moving forward regardless of what people say. That is what matters. And when people try to hurt you, when people are saying mean and nasty things to you, something that I continue to learn, and I've been taught this, and it's hard, but we have to be moved with compassion. We have to feel sorry that there are people who are saying these mean and nasty things. Maybe they've been hurt. We don't know their background. We don't know what they've been through. We have absolutely no idea why they're saying what they're saying. Maybe they tried and maybe they failed. We don't know their experience. And certainly we should feel bad for people who do try to hurt us. We should also take into account that response, right? That word response, right? Responsibility. It is the ability to respond, right? So response is to heal instead of hurt. Now, I'm not saying that, what people are saying, yeah, it'll hurt us, but we heal and we move on, right? We need to heal instead of continuing to hurt, right? This is a decision that only you can make. So be empowered to heal and to move forward with your life. So to empower people, we must first be empowered. To be empowered is to simply to take control of our life first. live our lives, and through practice, a person will gain confidence. And I love that word, confidence. We must crawl before we walk, right? We must, as a child, you're moving your arms, you're moving your legs, you're learning to crawl because you want to get from one place to the next. And then as you're beginning to crawl, you get more confident in doing that. And once you have that confidence, you begin to try to stand, you begin to try to walk, and certainly you're going to fall a few times. But you're learning to crawl, and upon that foundation of crawling, you start to walk. And as you start to walk, you start to move, and like I said, you'll trip a few times, maybe even a lot of times, some more than others. But we will walk, and then we will learn to run. And it's like those simple things. It's a simple truth, right? Just as children, we learn these things, and we can learn those lessons even as a child, even observing how determined a child is to go from one place to the next. We should be that determined as a child is. That's something it's a wonderful thing to see, the ambition of children. And, we must, like I'm saying, we must crawl before we walk, and to be free, we need to be empowered. We need to practice this and to gain confidence through empowerment. Don't you think that you'll fall when you first ride a bike? Well, of course. If you have ridden a bike before, I know some of us haven't, but when you're trying to learn a bike, or you're trying to learn a new language, or you're trying to learn really anything, you're learning how to be a programmer, or you're learning how to play guitar, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to trip up. You're going to fall a few times. You're going to get some bruises. But you keep moving forward, right? Won't you fall many times until you get confidence enough to walk and then eventually run? It's the same thing with driving, right? When you learn to drive a car or a vehicle of any sort, won't you press the gas too hard, or you'll brake too hard? Won't it take time until you master the art of driving, or you can even be confident enough to go on a freeway for the first time? It's taking practice, right? So part of empowerment is going into the world and getting that confidence through practice in responding to what life throws at you. So a lot of these questions are examples of how we get better. For in living here on the earth, we should all make it a goal to get better little by little, day by day. Every single day we can move forward in our life, or we can move backwards. In fact, we can move forward, we can move backward, or we can stay stagnant, right? We can remain as we are. And certainly, those are really our three options. So as we're talking about this, I want to share another quote with you guys. Like I said, I love sharing quotes with you. So here's how it goes. Every day should be spent by us as if it were to be our last, right? So in other words, it's like saying live your life as if it was your last day here on earth. So that quote is by, and I hope I get his name right, it's Publius Syrus. He was a Latin writer in the 1st century. And so this quote's a very powerful one, right? Do you want to know a great way, a great reality that helps us live better? It's living our life today as though it were our last, because, we're not promised tomorrow. We certainly shouldn't worry about tomorrow because we don't know if we're going to have tomorrow. What should matter is that we live in the present moment and we live our life. Certainly living your life as though it was your last day is a very powerful thing to consider and to think about. So how would you live your life differently if you knew that today was your last day? What does that look like to live your life as though it were your last? Just imagine what that would do to us. It would kind of light a fire under us, right? It would give us that pressure to just go out and change the how we live our life. That's something. It's kind of overwhelming when you really think about it. For me personally, if I were to take this quote to heart, I would make sure to tell my family that I love them, to tell my wife that I love her, to hold her. I would tell my children, and I would say, I love you. I would hold them close to me. I would tell my members of my family that I love and care for them. And if it was my last day, I'd say, I know we've fought, I know we've had disagreements, but at the end of the day, I love you, and I'm sorry that I've hurt you, and I'm sorry, I would say I'm sorry to really anyone that I've hurt. I would tell my family that I love and care for them, and that, I've enjoyed having you as my sister. I've enjoyed having you as my dad. I've enjoyed having you as children, kind of thing. And just saying that makes me very emotional thinking about that. I would make sure that I would do the things that I've always wanted to do, and never wanting to leave this earth not experiencing or doing the things that I've always wanted to do. It's kind of like when you think of the bucket list, right? There's that checklist of things, that list of things that you've always wanted to do in your life. Well, what if you weren't promised tomorrow? What would you do differently? Would you check off everything on the list, or would you not? And I certainly at least take that quote to heart. How would you live your life differently if today was your last day? It's a very hard question, and look, I don't have all the answers with that. A lot of these quotes that I share with you, I want you guys to wrestle with it. They're just quotes by, different authors, different writers, different sources, and it's just encouraging you to think about them. Even if you don't agree with it at all, it's certainly good to think it over and think of, well, why don't you agree with it, or why do you agree with it, or maybe you agree with one part of a quote and not another part. It is a sad reality that there are people who wait too long to begin living their life. They get held back by fear. They get held back by naysayers. They take to heart the negativity, right? Or they get held back by excuses and so many other variables. Do not let your life slip past you. Begin living it. This is taking control of your life. It is far too precious to let your own life slip away from you. And with all of this, I want to transition to 3 ways that you can become more empowered. These are not the only ways you can become empowered. These are just 3 ways that I have found in my own experience that has helped me become more empowered, and I want to share that with you. When we think about empowerment, there are, in my own experience, like I'm saying, in my own experience and understanding, there's 3 ways that you can grow in these alternative schools. I'm going to call them alternative schools, right? It's like education, right? These schools are ways that you can learn, you can grow, and become more empowered. When we think about education, right, most of us, we think of classrooms, we think of tests, pop quizzes, going to the principal's office, right? Homework, right? There's so much to it, and attendance, right? Roll call, whatever it is. We must realize that education is simply more than learning lessons in the formal educational setting. Education is way beyond the classroom. So here are 3 ways that you can become more empowered. So to start off here are 3 ways that you can become more empowered. I came up with these names myself, and like I said, I'm sure there are other ways that you can become empowered and ways that are unique to you. So here are the 3 ways that, in my opinion, you can become more empowered. These are the 3 alternative education empowerment systems. Number 1 is the Institute of Past Life Lessons. It is the history of nations and of people. The second one is the College of Hard Knocks, teachings of your own past failures. And number 3, it is the School of Observation, continued learning through mindful consideration. Now, I know those names are really long, and we're going to break those down. We're going to go more in depth with them. So that's just a broad stroke of these 3 schools, and I'm sure in the future I'll go even more in depth with this, but I just wanted to go ahead and share this with you. So this first one, it is the Institute of Past Life Lessons, History of Nations and People. These are lessons that we can learn from people in the past. This can be from biographies, it can be from historical books and records. Just think of the trove and the resources that we have available to learn from people who have gone before us. It is good to learn the lessons from other people, right? To learn what they have learned, even if those people, whether they're dead or still alive, right? Or if they've been long gone or not. In this first school, we can learn these many lessons, right? We can implement them into our own lives, and we can become empowered in the process, right? As we are learning, like I tell you guys, as you are empowered, go out and empower. This is the part of empowerment. This is the process. It is to be empowered and to empower others. So I always love looking at history. I love reading old books. I love seeing what people believed in back in the day, or what were things that were taught back then. I love looking at history, and I personally believe that every single person, we can learn many lessons, a multitude of lessons, if we take time to draw upon the well of experience, knowledge, wisdom, and understanding from the past. So with that, I want to share a quote that I think speaks to what we were talking about past lessons of the history. So I'm going to read this, and there's some names that I don't know how to pronounce, so you're going to have to forgive me here. So the quote says this: "I have read somewhere or other in Dionysius of Halicarnassus, I think, that history is philosophy teaching by examples." And that was written by Viscount Bolingbroke. Again, I don't know if that's how you pronounce their names, but the point is, in the quote, it's saying, history is philosophy teaching by examples. And I think that's very powerful. I think there's a lot of truth with it. It's a good quote. I mean, it's history. History will teach you by the examples of those from the past, right? These lessons can be good lessons. They can be bad lessons. It just depends on what you can gain, what you can extract out of the lessons, and the implementation of those lessons. For we all should be learners from those who have gone before us. And this is a part of the process of being empowered, right? Empowering ourselves and empowering others. This is but a gift that we can share. So before we go into that second school, I want to share something with you. This is kind of a side note. It's a side project that I'm working on. There's something that I enjoy doing, and I'm speaking about it in that first school, right, is learning lessons from the past. I personally enjoy finding books that have been written in the past that we can apply to in our lives today, and that's something that's really cool to do. So currently I'm working on a project which will be released in a few weeks here, maybe a couple of months, I don't know yet, if not sooner. What am I working on? Well, you guys, I am working on my second book. That is right, I am working on my second book. And for those of you who do not know me that well, this is your first time listening or watching the YouTube channel, on August 3rd, 2020, I released my first book titled Living Out Your God-Given Potential. Well, this year, I'm hoping, I got my fingers crossed here, I am releasing my next book, which is called As One Thinks, a revisitation of the James Allen classic. Now, keep in mind, you guys, this is not a paid promotion, but rather it's a little bit of self-promotion. It's a teaser of a new project. And this book, it is a reconsideration of James Allen's famous book, As a Man Thinketh. In due time, I will mention a little bit more about the project and my work on this project, right? It is working with a classic motivational piece. It's working with James Allen's classic book. And like I'm saying, as time passes, I'll be more than happy to share this with you, but I did want to announce to you guys who are watching or listening to this that I think that fits very nicely. We certainly should read the past and learn about it, but certainly we can speak to it. We can go to a text and revisit it and kind of speak to the text. And that's kind of an idea of what this project that I'm working on is, As One Thinks. Anyways, let's go back to the second book. So the second school is the College of Hard Knocks, Teachings of Our Own Past Failures. So this second school it's an interesting one, right? It's the College of Hard Knocks. Now that's a kind of a weird word, right? It's lessons that we learn, right? So that's why I kind of wrote after that, it's teaching of our own past failures. So there's a book that's very similar to what I'm writing here. It's called The University of Hard Knocks. It's written by Ralph Parlett. And he writes in chapter 1 of his book, and he says this, and I love what he says here. He says, the greatest school is the University of Hard Knocks. Its books are bumps. Every bump is a lesson. If we learn the lesson with one bump, we do not get that bump again. We do not need it. We have traveled past it. They do not waste the bumps. We get promoted to the next bump. So that was verbatim what he wrote in his book, The University of Hard Knocks. And what's interesting about this, I think Ralph Parlett is very spot on with this. He is speaking to the idea and the concept of failure. Now, look, there are so many people who struggle with failure, right? They struggle with this. And personally, I am not exempt from this. It is that F word, failure. You see, failure, it's a part of the process. It is part of that path of becoming successful. Failure, it's inevitable, and it is up to you to decide what you are going to do when you fail. And I know that doesn't sound very encouraging, dude. Well, what do you mean? What am I going to do when I fail? I'm going to be very sad. And we certainly get very sad when we fail. There's so many failures that happened in life, that happened in my life, and I'm sure there's a lot of failures that happened in your life. But it's not the question of if we are going to fail, it's what we're going to do after we fail. In the same way, it's not the question of if we're going to fall, right? Like when we're learning to walk, crawling before we walk. Right? We're going to have our mistakes. We're going to have our failures in life, and that's just one of the realities of this. And so we're going to get those bruises. We're going to get those bumps, like what Ralph Parlett is saying. It's you're going to fall. You're going to fail, and it's what are you going to do? How are you going to respond to that? Don't we appreciate the sensation of sweet success when we have failed but a few times? See, that's the thing. When we fail, it makes success that much more desirable. It makes it so much more worth it, because you look at it and you're like, hey, I failed 10 times, but on that 11th time I made it, and man, it was worth it. Because there's these lessons that you learn on the journey to success that is so worth it. Again, look, it sucks to fail. It's just the reality. But failure is a part of the path to success. And certainly some of us will fail more than others, but you keep pushing on, you keep moving forward. And as you keep tugging along, you make adjustments. And with those adjustments, it helps you on the path to where you need to go. Part of empowerment is learning those lessons from the school of hard knocks, right? It is the lessons from your own experience. These lessons are unique to you. Like learning lessons from other people, you too can learn lessons from your own experience, from your own everyday living. This is just how things are, and your experiences, again, they are unique to you. Do not be ashamed of your failures. Rather, investigate, look into what you can do differently or how you can go about things differently. When we think about it, when we fail, we get the opportunity to look at what we did wrong or what we could do differently in the approach of the how we did things, right? I might have mentioned in a previous episode, I'm not sure if I have or haven't, but years ago I used to go to therapy because I was struggling with some very unhealthy mindsets. Now look, I'm human and I was scared of going to therapy, and I know, look, I'm not perfect. I'm never going to be perfect, right? But I was really struggling with some unhealthy mindsets, and I was scared to go to therapy because I felt that I was a failure at life. I felt that a weak person would only go to therapy. But that wasn't the case. And that was actually a lesson that I had to learn in going to therapy, is that I will fail. I am a failure. I have failed at many things, but failure is a part of success. And it took me a very long time. It's not the only thing that I learned going to therapy. There's other things, of course, but it took me a very long time to cope, to overcome this idea that I was scum of the earth for going to therapy. No, it really helped me. And part of the challenge was realizing that I'm not less of a person because I've made mistakes. I'm not less of a person because I've had failures. We're not less of people. It just means that it didn't go the way that we wanted to, but we can do things different moving forward. And that's just a truth that we have to learn in our life, that we will fail, but it's what we do after we fail that really matters. I tell you, you are not a failure when you seek counsel, help, or advice, and I wish I could just tell myself back then that it's okay to go to therapy. The thing is, you can learn from your past failures, and you can also have someone who will help you figure out what to do differently. And I want to encourage you with this. If you're stuck in a rut and you're doing the same thing over and over and you're getting the same result after every single attempt over and over again, it might be a good idea to find someone who will help you. It might be good getting another perspective. It may even be a good idea to get help from a professional. Please know, when I'm saying all these things to you guys, I'm not a doctor, right? I'm not a therapist. I'm none of those things. I'm not giving medical advice here. All I'm saying is that it's good to get help from others at times, and it certainly could be wonderful advice to seek help from others when you're in a rut, right? When you're having the same outcome over and over. It's looking intentionally at how to do things differently. It's all about this idea of failure, the school of hard knocks, right? When we fail, we get a bump, right? As Ralph Parlet's saying. And when we get that bump, we know what not to do, or what we did right and what we did wrong. And so how do we go differently about it? That's certainly something to think about. The idea is that this second school is lessons from your past failures, and I see it as a secondary school because your own experience is unique to you. So finally, we have the third school, which is the school of observation. Continue learning through mindful consideration. So there's a book out there by Russell H. Conwell, and if that name sounds familiar to you, that is the guy who wrote Acres of Diamonds, and it's a very classic motivational, inspirational piece. So, well, he wrote another book. It's called Every Man His Own University, and I wanted to share that with you in the context of the third school, the third alternative school of empowerment, right? So here's what he writes. He writes, observation may bring us to all wide experience, deep thinking, fine feeling, and the power to act for oneself is the very dynamo of power. So what does that mean here? He's talking about the idea that we should observe things, right? And that our own university is learned through observation. We can learn many things through observing everyday life. It is what we are observing of other people, nature, right, etc., etc. And it's this alternative school. So this is a huge thing to think about. It is the idea that, again, we should observe things that are happening in our life. Think of how much you can learn by people watching. I know there's a lot of people out there who love to people watch. What can you learn by people watching, right? What can you learn through that observation when you're at the coffee shop, right? Or when you're in line at the grocery store? Or how about this? Maybe the things you can learn by observing the world around you, right? The birds in the air, right? The fish in the sea, nature, the galaxies when you're looking at a telescope, or the tiny atoms when you're looking in a microscope. There is so much that we can learn, and much that humankind is still to discover through observation. I mean, when you think about it, there's a lot of news articles out there about, new planets being discovered already. I'm like, we haven't discovered all of them? No, we haven't, because there is still much to discover, and discovery comes through observation. We still haven't even tapped into all of the world's oceans. I mean, I'm trying to think. I don't know how much of the ocean that we have actually uncovered and really sought out, but from what I understand, it's not a lot. And that goes to show you how much there is still that people can discover through observation, through studying of nature, and through studying through observation. That's the whole point of that. People in history have discovered many new technologies, inventions, and ideas through observation. Think of Isaac Newton, right? That's a good example. Think of Charles Darwin. Think of Thomas Edison and the Wright brothers, just to name a few. We can go on and on about many people who have learned new things, who have made new discoveries, inventions, innovations, technological advances just by mere observation. We can, it's like a rabbit trail we could go down. It's in the same way. Here's the thing. In the same way that these people have gained insight, they have improved millions of lives, right, through their observation. You can do the same in your own life. You can become empowered through observation of your own life and the lives of others. That's a very empowering thought, isn't it? So those are the three schools of empowerment. They can teach you, and through the lessons that you learn through these three alternative schools, or wherever else you learn things, You must learn them and apply them to your own life. That's a challenge doing them. There's so many people who hear things, they read things, they study things, right? They watch videos on YouTube like this. They'll take a course on Udemy or whatever it is, or Coursera or any of those things. They take in, but they don't act out, right? Because the learning process is input, right? I'm learning new information in my mind, but then there's the output, which is the living out of what you've learned, the implementation of the things that you have learned. And it's kind of sad that there's a lot of people, they just learn, but they never go out and do. They never implement it. They never share the ideas of what they've learned with other people. And we must learn. People must learn, and they must do. They must go out. They must hear and do. As it has been stated in Scripture, faith without deeds is dead. Faith without action is dead. And that's kind of a scary thing when you hear that. But it comes from the actual verse, and I'm reading this from the King James Version. It says, "Even so, faith, if it hath not works, is dead, being alone." And so, in the context of that, it's talking about having faith in Christ, right? And going out and doing what you believe in, right? And I think that's very true not only for the Christian, but it's also true in many other different applications and many other different situations, that we can't just learn things and not do anything with it. We should be encouraged to do with what we have learned. In the same way that a Christian is encouraged to have faith in Christ, or have their faith in God, and live out and do the actions, right? Do the work, right? Being hearers and doers of the word. So it's very nice how, and this is what I love about the Bible, is that there are things that can be applicable to the Christian, but also to the world as a whole as well. So to be empowered is to reach the potential that is within you. It is the potential that is inside of you. And it is like it's a reserve that is in you. Yes, you are meant to tap into it. And in the same way that the kingdom of God is within you, as referenced in Luke chapter 17, verse 21 in the King James Version, so too, the whole point I'm bringing up that verse is this idea you have untapped potential that exists inside of you. And it is up to you to decide, are you going to tap into that well? Are you going to tap into that reserve and use it? Or are you not going to? Are you just going to squander your gifts and your abilities? Are you just going to let your life be wasted away? That's a decision that only you can make. There is so much that is in you, and it is up to you to decide what you're going to do with it. The verse that I'm referring to, it's like I was mentioning, it's from Luke chapter 17, verse 21 in the King James Version. It's saying, "Behold, the kingdom of God is within you." And I know there's different translations with that, but the only reason why I'm bringing this up is that it's this idea that there's so much that is within you, right? For the Christian, God is indwelling within you, right? And so you need to seek God, right? You need to seek that within. And in the same way, we need to seek our potential that is within us, given to us by God. Or, whatever it is you believe in, there is potential, there is purpose that exists within you. That's all I mean when I say that. So here's some questions I want to ask you. What are you going to do with all that you have? I can't answer that, only you can. What will you do with your potential? Are you going to do it for good or bad? Are you going to use it to your full capacity or not? Are you living out your purpose? That's a hard one. And if you don't know, seek it out. You see to it that you, with everything that you are, you find out what your purpose, what your potential is. Seek it and discover it. Certainly go out and do it. Are you living your life? Are you living out your passions? That's another question to think of. So it's just a lot to think of. All of these questions are ones that you should consider. Be on a path where you are empowered to live your life the way that you decide. Do the things that are good to others, good for yourself, and good to God. I'm reminded of another Bible verse from Romans chapter 12, verse 2, also from the King James Version. It is one of those powerful metaphysical truths. It says this, "Be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God." So to the Christian, this verse speaks of how God will change us from the inside out, right? It's the renewal of our mind, being Christ-like and thinking of the things that are good to God. And to, I would say, non-Christians, there can be a mental transformation. It begins from you making those conscious decisions on how you're going to think and how you're going to live your life. It's just kind of interesting, right? So it's coming from the inside to the outside, right? Because from our thoughts come the outward expression of thoughts. And to the Christian, it's God will change us from the inside out. So it's kind of nice how all of that works. So this specific verse can be read in light of, right, changing your mindset, because out of your thoughts come your actions. Out of your actions come habits, and out of your habits come life. As you think, so shall you become. So be empowered to be the best that you can be. Live your life in excellence, loving yourself, loving others, and loving God. Think and consider the life that you live and how you can make a greater impact in this world. Time is short, and we can decide to make the best of this life or the worst of our life. Even when it is the best or worst of times, we can respond to what life gives to us, day by day, moment by moment. The past is in the past, and we can learn from the great library of yesterday. For knowledge and wisdom are free to all who seek it. Seek and you shall find, and when you find and discover, share what you learn. As you learn, teach. As you grow yourself, help others grow. Be empowered and empower others. You will be surprised how much of an influence you can have on others, whether big or small. To everything there is a season, and so may this be a season for you to take ownership of your life. Be responsible by increasing your ability to respond to life. Do not sell yourself short or give your power to anyone else. This is your life. It is yours to make and your life to venture out and to live your life well. Look towards the future and live your life now. My name is Patrick Dailey, and this is the 4th episode of Daily Life. Thank you.